Today, we welcome Margaret Kimberley, author, activist, podcaster, journalist. She has spoken in front of the UN and even a Veterans for Peace convention. I think we have to start with Trump, the recent plane crash, DEI, militarism, and austerity, and how they all link together.
Well, thank you first. Thank you so much for having me here. Vets for Peace is one of my, dare I say, favorite organizations. So it's a pleasure to join you. Well, it's a funny thing. I was telling one of my siblings, I said, Trump has been president not even 2 weeks. It feels like a year already. So let's talk about this plane crash, this terrible tragedy in Washington, which can be, it's one of those things that does not get enough attention, not considered a quote unquote sexy story. But the Federal Aviation Administration, it seems, is run on a shoestring. They rely on airline fees to fund the work of the agency instead of Congress appropriating what they should appropriate. So there's a shortage of air traffic controllers. And a very preliminary report has said there should have been two controllers in the tower, excuse me, that the night of the accident when the military helicopter hit the passenger jet. There should be one person looking at helicopters, another looking at planes, and there was one person looking at both. There were some, it seems, unlike the president, I don't feel I should be giving a definitive reason, but it seems that there were unclear or insufficiently specific instructions given to the helicopter. Instead of just saying, "Do you see the plane?" It's probable that the helicopter crew saw another plane and not the plane that they hit. But immediately, Trump, being Trump, he blames Joe Biden. He blames DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And I have to say, as a Black person, it's a difficult subject because DEI programs are a scam, basically. DEI became big in 2020 after the protests that took place nationwide after George Floyd was killed by police. And CEOs and government agencies suddenly claimed DEI, the diversity, was going to be important to them. Now, what it ended up being, of course, was virtue signaling by liberals. And there was even a study that showed that the diversity officers at most corporations were mostly white. Black people were only 4% of those roles, I believe, and made less than other people. So I find it kind of funny that people on the right want to blame DEI for everything, and most Black people know quite well that it didn't do very much at all. However, it's being used to spread hatred. Excuse me, the people who speak in opposition to it most vociferously are racist. That's their reason for opposing these programs that do something for some people involved in them, but don't change the nature of the country, don't make it less racist, don't give Black people more opportunity, none of the things that ought to be done in a society that's seeking real democracy and justice. But, of course, Trump seizes on this, that DEI kept qualified air traffic controllers off the job. But we also know in Washington, of course, it's the nation's capital, there are military helicopters. I had no idea. I mean, I've decided when I generally take Amtrak, I'm in New York City, I generally take Amtrak to Washington, and I'm going to keep doing that, by the way. That lawmakers, members of Congress are pushing to have more flights to go to their districts. The military are pushing to have flights. So you had an accident waiting to happen. And it's a huge shock because it's more than 15 years since there were any fatalities in a commercial flight in the United States. So it's shaken all of us up who fly. I now realize flying is an act of faith and some degree of denial, and it's shaken up when something like this happens. So what a president should say is, we don't know yet. Something simple like that. We are going to be on this. The National Transportation Safety Board is going to thoroughly investigate. We realize how important this is. That's all a president should say, but we're talking about Trump. So he issues an executive order saying DEI caused the crash. He has no authority to say what the cause of a crash is. So we have this bad combination, first of all, of austerity that is bipartisan, and it goes on administration after administration, with the government paying for less and less, not paying for, like the FAA, a governmental agency, Federal Aviation Administration. It should be fully funded. There should be no question about having enough air traffic controllers, but that's not the case because we have a system that's dedicated to the interests of corporations, dedicated to corporations, to wealthy people, to the military industrial complex, and not to the people of this country. So it seems to me that they were just lucky. And it's always bad when, you get away with something you shouldn't be doing because there's always a day of reckoning. And this was it. But we have dishonesty. We have Trump being Trump. We have members of Congress being silent as Trump is unilaterally making decisions about the budget, and members of Congress not speaking up for themselves, abdicating their responsibility. The military sharing airspace with civilian aircraft. And no matter how much austerity there's never a cut to the defense budget. We should call it the war budget. It was called the War Department, was it not? And then they changed it to
War Department,
Defense Department. But that is what it is. And no matter who's in office, that budget goes up and up and up. It's now about half of discretionary spending. So it's a confluence of a lot of things that need to change in this country that cause that accident.
My job. And the other thing is the FAA, used to really be something that was feared if you screwed up. And the airlines, had to be, the FAA would investigate them and see what they were doing. Do anything corrective to the airlines. They have somebody in the airline, an employee of the airline gets to do all the troubleshooting, and they say they tell the FAA what they're going to do.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say this all started with Jimmy Carter and Reagan deregulating the airline industry. So that's one way to impose austerity, is for the government to step away from its responsibilities. But there's some things only government should be doing, as we are about to find out. I think a lot of people are going to find out the hard way. If you have this weird situation of Elon Musk, who's a private, who's not in the administration, not a government employee, deciding, and the president going along with what money is going to be spent on. And DEI, this DEI mania, people losing their jobs. I suspect a lot of the people who've been fired in the now almost 2 weeks that Trump came into office, I'm sure they're going to sue. They may get their jobs back. They may get back pay, but that can be a long-term effort. They do not have the legal right. This idea that Elon Musk can send federal employees an email and say you can voluntarily resign, implying that you're going to be laid off, which probably is not legal. But it just shows you the power. We're seeing naked power of a billionaire, of the richest man in the world, acting in concert with a president with a terrible agenda and weak politics. The Democrats are supposed to be in opposition, but I saw, Chuck Schumer, my senator, who was the Senate minority leader, he was on social media saying these tariffs, Trump's tariffs, are going to raise the price of food. Your Super Bowl meal is going to cost more. I mean, I could not believe he had. I don't know if it was an intern, if it was his fault, but that's all you have to say. You don't have a bully pulpit. You play no role in democracy. And there's something else we need to watch out for. When When Obama was president and when Biden was president, we were told if you don't have 60 senators, you don't really have a majority. If you have more than 50 but not 60, it's not really a majority. There's a filibuster. You can't necessarily do what you want. Well, Trump doesn't have 60 senators. There are, I think it's 54 or 55 Republicans in the Senate right now. Let's see how, if Democrats step up and stop him the way Republicans stop Democrats. I don't think that's going to happen, but people need to remember this, that, when you were told you can't talk about Obama, he doesn't really have a majority. Let's see what they do with Trump.
So what are your odds that the Democrats are going to?
I won't take that bet. It's a sucker bet, I think.
That's right.
Maybe the parliamentarian will rein him in.
The parliamentarian. I never heard about a parliamentarian my entire life, as much as during the Biden administration.
Yeah.
All the things he said, well, the parliamentarian says we can't include a minimum wage increase and Build Back Better, which didn't happen anyway, which is one of the reasons Kamala Harris lost. But yeah, that's a problem with our duopoly. They're beholden to interests that aren't the interests of the people.